Jerome's wife and mine were away for the weekend, leaving just the two of us. The tension had been building for a while, and I could feel it peak as soon as they left. Ever since Jerome discovered my cross-dressing, our dynamic had changed. There was an unspoken understanding between us. What surprised me most was that he hadn't told my wife. He could have exposed me any time but chose to stay silent. Now, with our wives gone, the anticipation was undeniable. As soon as they drove off, I got a message from Jerome. "Be ready by 7. My heart raced. What exactly did he mean by that? The incident happened 2 months ago, but it still feels fresh. How could I have forgotten to close the blinds? In a split second, Jerome saw me, dressed in my wife's pink nightie, completely unaware he was watching. Cross-dressing has always been a private hobby, a secret indulgence. I love my wife, but sometimes I wonder what it's like to live on the other side, even just for a moment. It's a passing thought, nothing more. Yet, that brief curiosity led to something I never expected, a secret shared, and a line crossed. Be ready by 7? What could he mean by that? Was it just another night of bro time, drinking beers and watching football like we always did? Or did he actually want me to get ready, to cross-dress for him? Unsure, I texted him a simple question mark, hoping for clarification. His response was immediate. "Check your front door," followed by a kiss emoji. Curious, I stepped onto the front porch and found a large pink bag waiting for me. As soon as I opened it and saw what was inside, everything became clear. Without hesitation, I went to my wife's room, paused for a moment, then pulled out her red lingerie, knowing exactly what the night had in store. I shaved my entire body, making sure my skin was smooth before slipping into the red lingerie. The fabric hugged me, and I couldn't help but admire how it felt on my freshly shaved skin. I took out a wig from the pink bag, running my fingers through the soft strands before putting it on perfectly. With my heart racing, I headed towards my wife's dressing room. After several attempts, I finally managed to secure the wig properly on my head. It took some patience, but once it was in place, I combed through the soft strands, smoothing them until they fell perfectly around my shoulders. I sat down in front of the mirror, taking a deep breath as I began applying her makeup. Foundation, eyeshadow, lipstick, transforming myself inch by inch. The reflection staring back at me wasn't just me in a disguise. It was a whole new persona, one that was ready for whatever came next. Finally, I reached into the pink bag and pulled out the gorgeous red gown along with a pair of breast forms. The fabric of the gown shimmered as I held it up, its beauty undeniable. Slipping into it, I was surprised by how perfectly it fit, hugging my body in all the right places. I carefully placed the breast forms in position, giving the gown a fuller shape that enhanced the illusion. I fully expected Jerome to walk in and mock my appearance, but instead, he entered in a sleek black suit, holding a bouquet of red roses that matched my dress perfectly. To my surprise, there was no teasing. He complimented me, showering me with praise that made me blush, taken aback by his sincerity. With a smile, he told me to put on a pair of heels and join him in his car for a night out. I froze. I had never left the house while cross-dressing. The idea of stepping out in full attire both terrified and excited me. I always saw Jerome as the typical jock, strong, confident, and straightforward. We spent so much time together at sports bars watching football that I assumed he'd take me to one. When I realized what I was wearing, I begged him not to take me to a pub, dreading the awkward stares. But Jerome just smiled and said, "Trust me." When we got out of the car, my heart raced. We weren't at a dive bar. We were on a red carpet. It was the premiere of Hamilton in our city. High-profile, glamorous people surrounded us, dressed to impress. I felt completely out of place, overwhelmed by the crowd. But Jerome, calm and confident, took my hand and led me forward, making me feel like I belonged here. Inside the theater, the play unfolded in all its brilliance, captivating me from start to finish. Yet through it all, I couldn't stop thinking about Jerome. How much had he spent on these tickets? Why bring me here instead of his wife? The questions spun in my mind, but the way he looked at me, the way he held my hand, it was as if, for that night, I was the only one who mattered to him. After the show, we went to a Michelin-starred restaurant for dinner, and I couldn't stop thinking about Jerome's wife. She often complained that he never took her to places this fancy. As we sat in such luxury, I wondered why he was treating me this way. Unable to hold back, I finally asked about his true intentions. He leaned in, his voice low, and said, "You are special." Those simple words hit me hard, leaving me stunned and questioning what this night really meant to him. It started raining heavily as we rushed back to the car, the downpour soaking us through before we could even get inside. We were both breathing heavily, drenched from head to toe. Jerome pulled me close, trying to warm me up as I pressed into his chest, feeling the heat of his body against mine. Our breathing synced, and for a moment, we just stared into each other's eyes, the world around us fading into the sound of rain pounding on the car. Then, without a word, he closed his eyes and leaned in for a kiss. My mind raced. We were both married men, but in that moment, I couldn't resist. The pull between us was too strong. I gave in, closing my eyes and letting the moment take over. We kissed deeply, passionately, as the rain poured outside, creating a cocoon of intimacy inside the car. The drive home was silent as I grappled with the whirlwind of emotions after kissing a man for the first time. I couldn't stop thinking about how everything had changed in that single moment. When we reached his apartment, Jerome parked and invited me inside. My heart pounded as I followed him, fully aware of where this might lead. I knew I should have turned back, gone home, and let the night become a distant memory. But I couldn't resist. I followed him to his bedroom. I whispered, trying to reason with him, reminding him that we were both married and making a big mistake. He admitted he was just as nervous, but then said he couldn't resist me. He promised it would stay between us, a secret no one would ever suspect. After all, who would question two men spending time together? As he moved closer, his presence overwhelmed me, and my resolve weakened. My eyes softened, and before I knew it, we were kissing again. This time, it was more intense, more deliberate. His hands began to peel away my gown, and I found myself surrendering to the moment, powerless to stop what had already begun. The night was filled with passion, and I woke up in Jerome's arms, his grip tightening as he slept. My blonde wig had fallen off, but for a moment, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. It was a strange harmony I'd never felt before. That peace quickly vanished as reality hit. Our wives would return soon. Panic set in. I woke Jerome, and we hurried to erase any trace of what had happened, trying to restore everything to how it was before our secret night together. A wave of guilt washed over me as I greeted my wife. She was excited to see me, but immediately commented on my freshly shaved beard, playfully complaining about how she preferred the scruff. That evening, Jerome and his wife came over for dinner, invited by my wife so they could share stories from their trip. Throughout the meal, Jerome kept making subtle eye contact with me, and each time our eyes met, I felt my face flush with embarrassment. I could barely focus on the conversation as our wives chatted away, oblivious to the tension between us. Then, the moment they started discussing another trip, this time for over 5 days, I couldn't help but glance over at Jerome. He bit his lip, then winked at me, sending a silent message that stirred a whirlwind of emotions inside me. We patiently waited a month, counting down the days until our wives left for their next trip. As the time finally arrived, excitement coursed through me when I stepped onto the porch and saw the familiar pink bag waiting. I hurried inside to get ready. When I opened the door for Jerome, he swept me off my feet the moment he stepped in. In that instant, nothing else mattered. No wives, no families, not even the neighbors. All those worries faded away. For the next 5 days, I didn't think about the consequences. I was his girl, and he was my man. If you enjoy my videos and want to see more content like this, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Your feedback means a lot to me and helps shape future videos.